Hey everybody, welcome to TLDM, a Dungeons & Dragons DMing podcast, where Alan and I, my name is Tyler, share a common world that we both DM and play in. Alan, do you want to say what your name is?
You've done it. I'm good. Yeah. We are joined today by a regular guest on the show, fellow player in the Western campaign, Jeffrey Murdoch. Hi, Jeff.
Hi, how's it going? I want to let the viewers or the listeners know that I was in the Eastern campaign for a second, too.
That's right.
It's true.
I fell off a ship and I drowned.
Yeah. Well, but you lived.
I lived, but then I died.
But then you died.
You became a ghoul.
You have to live to die.
That's true. And you might still be alive for all we know.
That's true. There could be a ghoul underground.
Although now we're in a completely different timeline.
That's true.
Actually, no, now we're in that timeline,
but
it's 1,000 years in the future.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
So it might be a ghoul under the streets somewhere.
That's true. Or maybe ghouls are like an accepted thing now that just get to walk around.
But you know what? Also, you would have never met Soaking Paw because Soaking Paw's entire quest was predicated on a being that is no longer alive.
Never mind. I hope you're dead.
So I might just be like an improv gladiator then.
I think you were a famous improv gladiator and are now firmly dead for probably 900 years.
That makes sense.
Yeah. So we have, it's been a while since we've recorded a full episode. So we have some catching up to do in terms of our narrative arcs and where we're at with those. We're going to talk about a few things today. Skill checks and when and where to use them being one of them.
That's the main thing.
Yeah. And then a little bit about session zeros since we did one last week in Alan's campaign.
Yeah.
To summarize the last month of play, let's turn to Jeff Murdoch. Since it was his in our Western campaign, we were following his character's quest to reclaim not necessarily reclaim, but to claim a castle that was his due.
Yeah.
So take us through it, Jeff.
So my character, who's been known as No Name, Kamal, Trevor, and now he's got a new name, but I won't spoil that until the end. But we've realized that this town up,
Just remembered your new name.
This town up in the mountains called was it Ice?
It was called Ice Pines.
Ice Pines had been being affected by some creatures in the woods. The townspeople, I think, believed that it was the furbolgs attacking and taking people off.
And you are a furbog.
I am a furbog, so they did not like my kind. And then so we got a letter from a guy with weird eyes who's like, "Hey, you must come up here. Your mother wants to see you." And there's these sea hags. And Mother Crumb, is that her name?
Mother Crumb.
Mother Crumb sent for us. And she's been taking over this town and causing havoc, disguising herself as other people and sneaking into the town and just causing rambunctious times. So we showed up, and a lot of different gameplays. We did a game called Fear. Was it a Fear?
It was called Dread.
Dread, which is similar to Fear, where you play Jenga basically, and every time something bad happens, or if you knock it over, your character will die or have something bad happen to him. But you could use one of your matches to save yourself. This was not our regular characters that we played this game with. This was townsfolk. So, like, we had a trapper, we had a barmaid, we had other folks.
We had a beetle.
We had a beetle, which is not like the bug, but like a church guardian, right?
Mm-hmm.
So they all went into the woods and they found out that something had been happening in this giant tree. Animals were acting weird. They were dying and mutating into zombies. And then our heroes swarmed in to save the day, killing a couple sea hags, but not Mother Crumb. So they had to find Mother Crumb back in town, causing a fire, taking the town by havoc and just destroying things. And our heroes teamed up and they crushed Mother Crumb. And then, we changed the name of the town to Badukaville, and no longer Ice Pines, because out with the past and with the new. And Trevor changed his name to Emperor, and he's now the emperor of the biggest city in all of Tengri, Badukaville.
Mm-hmm. By his estimation.
It's much bigger. It's definitely taller than most cities.
Definitely bigger than, what would you say is the number 2?
Probably Bernevad.
Yeah.
And then every other city. And then at the very bottom is Flern.
That's just not...
Yeah. Not true. There is definitely a growing rivalry between Badukaville and Flern.
You can't really be rivals with something that's so far beneath you.
I call Flern East Badukaville, so I know some people call it Flern, but whatever.
Here's the thing: is like some people call Badukaville the Flern of shitty iced wastelands, and I take offense to that because it's not even close to being the Flern of even the terrible place that it is.
It's a great ski metropolis.
Yeah, it's interesting to me because I think of it as Flern Aaron is culture rich and resource poor, and Badukaville is resource rich and culture poor.
We got a library. We just built it.
You just built a library. So
yeah, Montage
cool.
built it. And,
Montage.
I just clinched some trade deals, so...
You did, yeah. So you do have some resources coming in.
So I guess Flern's kind of resource rich and culture rich.
No, I mean, like, honestly, you haven't gotten those yet, so we'll see what happens.
Oh, wow. It sounds like...
Are you
trade war?
threatening me?
Yeah.
It's going to be a trade war, man. We got sanctions against you.
I don't want to trade with you.
And we might have talked about it before, but yeah, so we played Dread for that session, which I had a lot of fun running.
It was really fun to play.
It was cool to
Yeah, Dread is
It was very stressful.
completely different feel. Yeah, it's kind of terrifying.
Alan, didn't you burn your hand while playing that game?
Yeah, that was a poor, an extraneous mechanic that I had read about that seemed fun of using candles, and it had the obvious outcome of hot wax on Alan's hand.
What was the glass of the...
Got so hot.
Oh, right, because it started breaking. We just had bad candles.
Yeah, our candles were in little, like they were the kinds you put out to like not actually light like an evening dinner, but like to make it look like romantic. Those little glass ones, and the fires heated up the glass to the point that it was burning hot. Ouch! So when you try to move it, the candle, hey, hiss, burn, and then also some of them cracked. Mm-hmm. Which earnestly, that was the only part of the experience that I would change was burning myself and breaking glass.
Yeah, it was pretty fun otherwise.
Yeah, I concur. And then I'm just going to try to summarize. Since then, we kind of split the party up to go their separate ways before our next
volleyball season,
season, which is sort of what the micro arcs of our campaign currently settle around. So we're playing through these micro arcs of volleyball seasons, and each season is tied to the castle reclamations that we have from our drawing of the Deck of Many Things oh so long ago. The last one we have is for Chuck. So as a little interlude, I wanted to play a couple of sessions focusing on Matt's character, Rev, just to bring him in more because he's hasn't had as much focus as the other characters. So we're doing a little side heist for him in a town, and he is playing his character, and then I had Jeff and Alan and Chuck and Aaron, when they were able to come in, create side thief characters who turned out neither of them are thieves to help plan the heist, just because I think it's fun to keep the reality of the fact that they're all separate from each other rather than like try to shoehorn them all together all the time. I think it's more fun to give people kind of their own thing to do in between. So we planned the heist today. Mm-hmm. Next week we will execute the heist and then carry on our merry way towards Chuck's castle. Alan, how's your game going?
Good. I think we'll go into that maybe on our next episode, I think, because there's, I imagine, some stuff to dissect about what's been going on in the Easter campaign and ultimately what will be going on in it as a result of a reboot. We're doing the old campaign reboot.
Can I ask a question?
Yeah.
Earlier you mentioned a 0 episode or a 0
session 0.
0 session. What does that mean?
So that's a great question, Jeff. A session 0 is usually done at the beginning of a campaign, and different DMs run them different ways, but they usually serve as a means to get together, figure out how the party knows each other, kind of like do some world building and explanation, either from the DM side or as a kind of joint collaborative process. And the reason they're called the session 0s is because generally speaking, there isn't any actual mechanical gameplay in them. It's a lot of like, it's just a different kind of game that day because people are building their characters, figuring out how to know each other, trying to figure out what their motivations are and stuff within the context of the campaign environment. We're establishing known NPCs, known locations, any relevant like interpersonal or social like metagame rules are usually done at that point. Like I know a lot of DMs have like a cell phones in a bucket policy, like when you walk in the house.
Ooh.
There's a little basket by the door or whatever, or a drawer, and everyone puts their phones inside. Or we establish a meta rule like in my games, you don't roll checks against other players. With the only exception I have is if you're like trying to push someone or something, and then you do the classic shove mechanic stuff. But no, like I pickpocket him and I take his thing, and then we roll like a perception check versus their sleight of hand. I think is lame. I think it's more interesting to let the players attempt whatever they would like against each other, and for the other players to decide how their characters feel about those things. I think the mechanics exist, in my opinion. Now I'm just tangenting into something completely different, but in my opinion, the mechanics exist to help the DM facilitate from their side of the screen to the player side, and not between players.
Yeah, I think it's more fun with those PC to PC things. Just to jump on that tangent real quick, to do the question, ask the player, would your character be aware of that pickpocketing or something? Like, is that something they'd be on the lookout for?
Right.
And
or like, do you believe this lie? Or like whatever.
We did one. We did a session 0 after Erin used her wish spell to rewrite history. Yeah. So that's when we decided to like be a volleyball team, and
we like wrote down how we all knew each other.
Wrote down how you all knew each other, and decided when to play and where. It's also, I mean, luckily we've never had to do it, but if you're playing with strangers, it's a good session to establish things of like, hey, let's not have like explicit sexual content in this, or like rape, or you know,
or like I don't think jokes about illness are funny, or whatever. Like that's what I meant about interpersonal, like expectations, triggers, or anything of like, hey, I'd rather not do like abuse issues, stuff like that. Luckily, we tend to play a goofier game, and also we all know each other's sensibilities pretty well, so I haven't actually encountered a need for us to do it, but we had it come up in your campaign reboot discussion a little bit, which was nice. That's cool. I also, since we did it, we like kind of had a thing and then ended it and then rebooted, and now we're going to start a new thing. I kind of use that as an opportunity to double check and get some feedback on things that people enjoyed and like didn't enjoy as much that could help me design arcs for the future as we go forward. So that was really useful for me too, from me side of it.
Player reviews.
And essentially being like, do you like fighting, or do you like puzzles, or do you like, what do you like?
And they like puzzles.
Yeah, which is fun and surprising a little bit.
It did surprise me a little bit. Because you don't like puzzles very much.
No, I like puzzles.
Oh, I was under the impression they didn't like puzzles, and I kind of stopped designing them.
What did you think I liked?
No, I thought you liked like complicated role play based problem solving.
Oh yeah, I count puzzles as part of that almost.
Okay,
like it's another type of puzzle.
Fair
to me,
it's like a social puzzle.
Yeah, exactly. What do you like, Jeff?
You know, I like.
You've played a few different types of characters at this point.
Yeah, I have.
Your new guy's fun.
My new guy's fun. He's a fun little thief, but not a thief at all.
He's just a delivery guy.
Yeah.
I think what I like is, I like the performance aspect of it. Like, Rich story is like just coming up with who we are to each other. Like, I became a courier just because I don't know, that sounded fun.
Yeah.
Like, just I deliver a dwarf around town. I prefer that over like, straight up just smash, hack and smash.
Yeah.
Like, I'm just a generic barbarian who comes from a clan up in the hills, blah blah blah. Like, that's all fine, but like I like the more unique stuff. And but that being said, I don't mind going through some battles and using your head.
Yeah, literally for a head button.
Hell yeah, dude. Just to add, I also kind of like when characters die, because that gives it like some like consequential stuff. Like, I like consequences and things.
Yeah, that's my thing. Yeah, I think I enjoy like kind of pushing the snowball from the top of the hill and just like getting to watch it roll. That's my favorite way to approach games. And like I sincerely don't mind, and I try not to take other people down with me, because that's not always fun for everyone. But I sincerely don't mind having like bad things happen. Yeah. That like enhance or I just like story rich, I guess is really what it is. And like the story can be good whether it's happening, like things are going your way or not.
Yeah. You almost murdered a halfling child today.
We did.
You did.
We did murder it. Yeah. And by we definitely mean Matt murdered it.
I also did torture him.
You did.
You guys are monsters. I didn't do any of that. No, I had him fixed, as a matter of fact.
You did. Yeah, you were. And honestly, a 180 to other characters you've played in our games.
That's just not true. true.
I
No,
mean, Soaking
yeah,
Paul
Soaking
was
Paw-
the worst.
Guys,
Soaking Paw murdered an innocent person
caused
walking
so
past.
much trouble.
when?
Remember,
The town,
and you
the
in
mutants.
the town, and you stuffed them in a rug and rolled them up and disposed of their body. And then you
This is
murdered.
being
you murdered,
misrepresented.
No, and then you murdered a passerby who saw that you had murdered somebody.
Oh,
You
that.
Well,
murdered
that's,
that witness.
that's like that. You have to do that.
That was back
Yeah.
in the past too. That was
Yeah.
before like all the shit hit the fan.
Yeah.
You just murdered.
Yeah, that was
I don't know. That just kind of seemed like what we were doing.
yeah.
I mean, you conveniently leave out that was after I saved like 7 people from a fire.
You did save us some of the fire, which was very, very nice.
Was that after that? I thought that was before the fire.
Wait, was that before the fire?
See, so I exhibited real character growth.
I know you did, 100%. There was nowhere to go but up, and you went there.
Kicking and screaming the whole way.
You know, you gotta kill a random NPC to save your friends.
Yeah, which I finally remembered the name of an NPC from a long time ago that I'm now that I finally remembered his name, I'm excited to bring him somehow back into the fold, which is OSC
Oh,
Great
no.
Veil.
Who's
Wait.
this?
OSC Great Veil.
That's not the guy whose hand we cut
yeah.
off. Fuck.
Ooh, whose hand was this? Was I there for that?
Yeah, he was.
Yeah,
I
he
think
was the
so.
guy who was like chaining people up to burn them at
Oh,
stakes or
that's
whatever.
right. The
It was-
Redeemer?
It was not the Conqueror.
The Conqueror.
It was the.
He was like the Revenger or some garbage like that.
Oh man, I have it written down because I was like, I need to
I
remember
wonder if
this.
he's in my notes.
Oh, we saved that one guy that turned out to be like the demon dude.
Yeah, a lot happened 1,000 years ago.
We were not great heroes.
I think I
was this
drew
the
a
hand?
line.
Is that what we're called?
Yeah,
the hand of justice.
Yeah,
The fist of justice.
The fist of yeah, that was what you guys were. One thing I want to say about with story stuff while Alan looks for his notes.
No,
I don't
I didn't
think.
bring any of my old soaking
Yeah,
notes.
is like it's an interesting thing with story because you want that like snowball effect. The rolling downhill is really fun to be in when it's like things keep getting worse. But it's been an interesting within our campaign. When we initially started playing, I was doing that where every week was like a new wrinkle from the previous week. But I think at some point it got to be too much.
Yeah.
And it's been an interesting thing learning how to like back off on the downward slope and letting something plateau for a little bit and like chill out before going. Aaron and I went and saw A Quiet Place this weekend.
Is it good?
It's very good.
I've been thinking about going to see that movie.
I really recommend it. However, I will say at about 3/4 of the way through it, it gets pulled down a little bit by the genre that it's in, like its horror moviness, because at some point, and we were talking about it, it's just the time is too truncated. It's like everything happens over one very bad day, essentially. And if they had spread it out over a week or even a couple of days, it would have slowed down nicely, because it is just like a tense situation happens, and then the consequences of that lead to a more tense situation, which lead to a more tense, and it just keeps doing that, and you don't ever get a break. And so at some point it stops being quite as fun as it was, because it's like, well, shit, we know that this is just going to lead to something worse. Or like there's never which is a storytelling thing I realize that I think is important, is being like, cool, like things get more and more complicated, but sometimes they don't. Like sometimes it's just like you have a week off and like you get to do other stuff that also establishes story, which like I think our volleyball team is what really pointed that out. Like when we had the session that you didn't enjoy because you guys got PPK'd and we're going to become soldiers, that was like a complication that would have escalated that snowball effect, but instead just making you guys become an enemy volleyball team took a lot of the stakes out in a way that was like, right, we don't actually need more stakes right now. We already know the stakes are high, so it's actually nice to have to artificially lower the stakes rather than keep escalating up. It's just like a thing I reckon for you at home. Like sometimes
let the steam out.
Let the steam out so that you can refill the iron. Jeff, I had a question for you.
Sure.
Since we are blessed with your presence.
Hey, yeah.
And we're already tangenting all over the place.
All over
I
the
love
place.
a good tangent. Honestly, most of my stories are tangents.
Yeah. Jeff, what's your favorite skill to roll?
My favorite skill to roll?
What's your favorite skill check type thing to do?
Oh, wow. I mean...
Or do you enjoy doing those at all?
I do enjoy doing I love doing them. I will force a roll, just like... I mean, truly, I feel like I've done it. It's been a while, but so many times I would roll to see if I shit or threw up.
Yeah, right.
And I love doing that.
And is it because you enjoy beating it, or you enjoy the randomness?
The randomness
of it.
Yeah, I love to leave things up for chance. Like that's why I like, when characters like, die, or like character like just you're not expecting expecting it. You're not like, it's like not like the perfect story. It's just like, it will happen.
Yeah.
So yeah, I mean, I like to roll I think any rolls like kind of fun. But I don't know, off the top of my head, I'm thinking of like, I feel like I do a lot of like intimidation or persuasion rolls. Like try to like get a character to do something like, which I feel like is a fun way to try to hack the system.
Right.
Which like, you know, like, oh, you're supposed to go down this hallway, but like, what if we just, I don't know, yell at these kids and tell them to go down the hallway first, or just using kids as a shield, obviously.
Right. As you do.
I love to do it. But yeah, just like doing that kind of thing, or like an athletics check, because like if you fail it, it's like, oh yeah, I'm gonna fall and probably break my arm. And
so it's the possibility. It's not the success or failure of it that's interesting. It's the possibility of what will happen as a result of it. Yeah.
What's your favorite check, Tyler?
Wow, thanks, Alan. Oh my God! What?
We'll see you next week, guys.
Yeah, sorry.
We got some stuff we got to talk about.
And we had just talked about how close we are as friends.
I kind of like Adam Winnick as a name.
It is a good pseudonym.
Way better than my stupid name.
No, yours has a lot of consonants. That's nice.
Yeah. Well, nice job, dude.
Anyway, Alan, thank you for the question. My favorite, honestly, the role I think is the most fun to do is also one of the ones that's hardest to actually do anything cool with, which is an insight check, which is like, I want to know more. I want to like use my personness to determine like what's going on with this other person. Like it's another way of like
it's
hacking.
Like the one you'd want to be able to do
most
really
in
well
real
in
life.
Yeah.
Is like being able to be like this sort of sizing up and being like, what's really going on with you? But it's also really hard to DM that. Because without it just being like, well, yes, they are lying or anything. Like it's the one that invites the most storytelling for the DM, but also is the hardest to DM.
Yeah. Sometimes the way I get around that is just calling for the check, because you run into that situation where as a DM, if you're playing a character who's lying, if you're lying well, then the players believe you. In which case they're not gonna like, sometimes some players do, but as a general rule with the tables that we run, the players will be like, we accept what you're saying as truth. And if you're obviously lying as an NPC, they still won't ask for the check because they sense as human beings at the table that you are lying.
Right. So
it's hard. It's a hard one to like try to get people to ask for or like look into. Mm-hmm. So sometimes I just call for a roll where if I know someone is hiding something or has ulterior motives, or maybe even is like just suppressing an emotion or something, I'll call for a roll.
What do you do then when they fail the roll?
Usually failed insight rolls are super fun to me because I think you can basically say anything, you know? So if you fail the check, I can still tell you for fun. I can be like, this person's like clearly lying to you. And then there's like a fun thing that happens where the player's like, well, I failed, didn't I? Like, so they're telling the truth, but I guess I believe they're lying. And like, there's just like fun you can have with that one.
Can I ask, have you ever done something where like somebody was like, you're like, oh, I didn't mean for that person to lie at all, but I wanted them to tell the truth. Somebody failed an insight check, and you're like, they're lying.
Yeah.
Like, that's kind of fun to think of.
I've done that, and it's
now
fun.
Everyone thinks that someone that's telling the truth is just lying all the time.
Yeah. Well, sometimes I call for insight checks, like if people are talking to an NPC and that NPC starts to say something and then they like cut themselves off, I'll ask for an insight check. And on a success, I'll be like, this person is like really clearly has more to say on the subject, but they're gonna need some coaxing. Is a fun one to call insight for. But if you fucking biff that one, I might be like, this person looks seedy and uncomfortable, and like you caught them at, so, you know what I mean? Like just misreading. Like how can I spin this so that yes, you can tell that something's wrong either way, which is why I call for the roll. But you misread, because that's really what insight boils down to, is your ability to like read people.
Yeah, you misread them and just like now you can like threaten them.
And now you
kill them.
Now instead of like trying to grease them with honey, you might be like thinking that they're your enemy.
Yeah, it's interesting because at the same time, I feel like the hard part with doing, I also think that's really fun, and the hard part that I always encounter with it is at some point, especially like the way that our two games play, our players also like knowing, our players as opposed to the characters, our players like knowing what's true at some point. Like they like if there's a misunderstanding or something, they like knowing at some point if it was a misunderstanding or not. Like they enjoy sort of that story, that meta storytelling. storytelling. And that's the thing that I always trip over is like, in the moment being like, oh yeah, it's super seedy, is like when to pull back the cover to be like, yeah, I mean, you misread the situation. Now that it's resolved, you misread the situation, but like, here's what it actually was. Cause like people enjoy that, or whether or not to do that and just let people like, cause the problem, I think when we were in that city, the problem that happened was I ended up making you guys think everybody in this entire town was like seedy and like untrustworthy. And it was just because like we just kept having bad insight checks and like bad initial interactions. And so there's like some point where it becomes a thing of like, wait, I don't necessarily actually want to create a world that is all against the main characters, so much as I want the main characters to be aware that they are, you know, like I want the players to be aware that they're creating this world for themselves. Is like such a tricky thing to balance out.
Which
It's
actually
really
brings me to, that's a great way to leapfrog into something that I definitely wanted to talk about in regards to skill checks, which is,
thank you.
You don't always have to ask for them.
Right.
Like just because your players want to attempt to do something, if it, there's like probably many, but I can think of like a handful of super prime reasons to just skip the skill check.
Agreed.
The first and foremost one is like, if you, like in that situation that you're describing, if you're like, oh man, every successive fail here is going to make things like harder and like warp the world perception in a way that wasn't my intention, then as a DM, as you, at any point, you can just be like, great, no roll required. Here is the deal.
Right.
And I feel similarly about, it's actually written in the rules, which I find very interesting. And, I know a lot of people like, and I think should be an exception more often than a rule, is that as far as skill checks are concerned, a 20 doesn't necessarily mean success and a 1 doesn't necessarily mean automatic failure.
Right.
And at which point I have to, like, I wonder about that a lot because it begs the question, like, if even a 20, if even a natural 20, which is, perhaps for those of us who aren't aware, the highest number on a D20, if a natural 20 is not an automatic success, what purpose does the roll serve?
Right.
Rather than skipping it and just declaring the failure and the results of that. Especially since asking for the roll, I think, and then, so let's say you ask for a roll and the player rolls a 20 and then you still, like, you already know that that's not going to work. If a player rolls a 20, they're celebrating, right? Like, that's a big deal. And then to take that, it just feels like a wasted, like rug pull to me.
Yeah, I will say I mostly agree with you. I think there is one set of circumstances where it does make sense, but it should be rare in the exception, which is when it is something, if you're creating the kind of world where characters will be able to return to those things later when they've leveled up, where it's like, so it's not like a persuasion check or something like that. Like that's bullshit. If you get a 20, like you win. But if it's like a lock picking thing and it's like this lock requires a 25 to get, or we'll say like a 27 for some reason, because it's the most powerful lock in the world. And then it means like if you're under a certain level, there's like very little chance, almost like there's literally no chance of you doing it. But later there is a chance you can do it. Things like that are cool in a closed world that people are going to be able to return to that spot later. But if you're playing with like level 3 people and you make it level 20 or like a 27 skill check on a lockpick, it's like, well, just say it's unopenable because there's no way to do it. But if you want them to come back and try it later when they are level 15 and then they actually can potentially do it, then that's very cool.
Yes.
But that's pretty rare. I don't know that I've ever actually encountered somebody designing like that.
Now, can I ask you two a question?
Yes,
please.
Man.
What's like the most, when you're both players as well as DMs, correct?
Correct.
What's the most like clutch thing you've done, or I guess even seen in a game, like just like a roll that like made something insane happen?
Oh man. I mean, I guess it's not a technical roll, but I flipped a coin one time.
That's a two-sided coin.
That's a two-sided die.
That's good.
A D2.
I rolled a D2.
Yeah.
One time, and it actually just it just rolled all the way. Like I had to get another one because it just rolled off the table and rolled out the door.
Pretty close.
And then my poor meatball.
Oh.
No, the floor.
I did roll a D2 one time to determine what would happen to two players who were trying to stuff themselves into the handy haversack.
Oh, wow.
Or haversack, I guess. Is that the pronunciation of that?
I don't know. I say haversack.
I think it's I think it's supposed to be haversack, but
Probably.
it just
Sounds very
looks
Scottish.
bad on
Haversack.
haversack. Yeah, they were trying to stuff themselves into an extra dimensional bag.
Yeah.
And the rules are pretty explicit about what happens if you try to overload one of those. And the rules are, if you try to do that, the bag ruptures and all the contents inside of it are lost forever is the word for word on that.
Whoa.
And all of its contents are destroyed, the bag disappears, and everything goes away to the astral plane.
Right.
And I was like, okay, well, this is tricky because they're halfway into this thing.
Right.
So what happens to them? So I decided to flip a coin to determine what would happen. On a 1 or tails, whatever. On a 1, they would end up literally ripped into the astral plane and be lost forever as contents of the bag.
Mm-hmm.
And then the other half of because it's also a kind of a weird decision that I was like, I mean, if this is what we want to do, let's do it.
Yeah.
And then the other one, which it actually ended up happening, fortunately, was that they just got like kind of spit out of the bag as it like ate itself and disappeared.
Oh, damn. So it still is gone.
Yeah, it came very close to
Taking it
effectively a 2-person KO.
Yeah.
Wow. That would have been
A
killer.
TPK.
A 2 PK, I would say.
2PK.
2BK?
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah.
Tyler, same question.
I don't remember. I mean, for me, I think the most important roles have always been like either death saves or like attack stuff, because those are the moments that feel most stressful. I feel like acrobatics rolls always make the most fun because you use those in like climbing situations instead, or you can,
Or
you
doing
know,
something cool. Like
or
a kickflip.
athletics, yeah. And so those always create very fun, cool moments where it's like, am I going to be able to like do this flip right, or am I
Yeah.
going to land on the table? So it's just like very cinematic. I think those, or persuasion stuff, but I guess as a DM, I try to never use skill check when the question is like, will I succeed or fail? Because it's like, I mean, I don't care. Ultimately, like if it's like, yep, you tried to persuade, or like you tried to climb it and you roll in athletics, you got a 0, like you got a 1. Yeah, you can't climb that wall. It's like, that's kind of dull. It's like, also it's like, well, why wouldn't they just, what would keep them from just continually trying?
Yeah.
I sort of do the take 10 or take 20 model of like, from earlier D&D editions, which is like, if you have, if you're not in an immediate stress situation, assume that somebody can eventually do an average job, or if they have all the time in the world, eventually they can do a perfect job. And so generally try to just follow that rubric. I like to do skill checks when it's like not like will you or won't you, but like what will happen.
Yeah.
And instead of so this is nowhere in the rules, but instead I treat it as like a spectrum of like the closer to 1, the more rough the outcome is, and the closer to 20, the more like kind of ludicrously perfect the outcome is on a lot of skill checks, just because that is opens more doors, where it's like, oh, you got a 7 means that things are kind of a mixed. I guess really I just use like powered by the apocalypse rules of like a 7's like a mixed success, and like a 19 means you pretty much killed it, and I'm like, I don't care between a 20 and a 17, like you did great.
Yeah.
And so we'll just be like, yeah, you point out like a little slip of paper and see that it's a birthday card, and you congratulate them on a happy birthday. They light up and they invite you to their birthday party, and it's like, that's
Damn.
fun. Yeah.
Now that's a game I want to play.
Yeah.
Or if it's like a 7, it's like you see a birthday card and you congratulate them on their birthday, and they get real somber and they tell you it's their daughter's and they can't see her today because their ex-wife won't let them go to the birthday party, and they're in a bad mood now. And it's like,
Honestly, if you got de-invited from your daughter's birthday party by your ex-wife, you probably did something wrong.
right, exactly. So like then it creates new situations of like,
Yeah.
do you really want to get along with this guy? This guy's probably a bad guy.
It's a bad dad.
He's a bad dad.
Yeah.
But you could counsel him through it and make him a better dad. So
with a sweet ass insight check, you could.
Right.
Oh, shit.
Right. But then that's the thing where it's like with that, yeah, it would be the insight check wouldn't be like, do you figure it out or not? It's like, what do you
How
figure
effective
about?
are you at
Yeah, it'd be like, oh, you figure out that he's probably distant to his kid versus like, oh, you see that like he's afraid that he's going to make his kid like himself, so he keeps his distance because he doesn't know how to talk to him. And like, like the degree to which you understand why
This
what
took
you
a
see.
turn.
Yeah. Things like that are fun to me.
Yeah.
So I don't know. So I feel like the short answer is my favorite roles ever have probably been like you at halibut time, like flirting with the waitress.
Oh, I love to flirt at halibut time.
Yeah, halibut time was another campaign we
Oh,
played.
okay.
There's a great halibut shop.
I thought you were talking about trying to pick up that old gnome waitress from the diner
on
and
the cruiser.
the moving
Yeah,
fortress.
the Ark.
Yeah.
Yeah, so my favorite skill check rolls are when they are completely
Oh yeah, story-wise.
crucial.
I just love the flavor.
But potentially very character impacting.
Yeah.
100%.
Like character impacting checks that
Change who you are.
don't actually really perhaps quote unquote matter in the grand scheme of the adventure are always super fun.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, and truly, I'm more and more playing only, like DMing only to get to those moments where I'm kind of like being like, yeah, sure, here's all the stuff you know. Let's just get to the moment where you guys are like, oh, I'm interested in this thing. Can I roll for this? And then I'm like, great, finally we're playing again. Let's get on board.
Can we turn this shitty bar into the perfect renovated Paducaville?
The Paducaville Tiki Bar.
Yeah.
Paducaville, best city in the world.
Yeah, it does have a pretty dope Tiki Bar.
Yeah, I made it. Here's another thing to try that I've found works out pretty well in games that I've run is as far as rolling checks to discover, discern, or crack major story moments.
Yeah.
Or like, I don't know, what's the word I'm looking for?
Yeah, like
things
to solve, right? Like like to do like investigation checks or like history checks,
right? Or yeah, like plot important stuff in general. My suggestion and an option is skip that check because fuck, man.
Because
what happens
happen
if everybody
fail?
fails?
Yeah.
Then the campaign is garbage. Like if it's something that everyone really needs to know or that you want them to know, or be able to interact with, but you still want to like make it something that's like tied to a character's skill or abilities. Ask who in the room has the highest passive arcana, or who has the highest passive insight, or who has the highest passive, whatever the relevant check is, and then give that information to that one person. That's a way to avoid a bad roll of the dice from stalling your campaign as your characters find no clues in the murder they're investigating or what have you.
And this is a trickier thing, a trickier DM technique that you need to know your group well and know that they enjoy this type of thing. But one thing that I enjoy doing with our group is sometimes going out of the game myself and giving the information. So it's like, this murder is connected to like the Band of Ides cult that you saw earlier. This is something I'm telling you, the players. Your characters don't know this yet, but they're about to figure it out. How do they figure it out? And letting the players kind of take narrative control in that moment and explain some of the stuff, because it's like, I know like Jeff and Alan and our group in general enjoy these like cinematic things that are hard to roll into, but we can like as a group talk through them. Like today, for example, there was a thing where we were doing this heist. You guys introduced your characters, and I think we all discovered at the table of like, oh, we have two non-heist characters here for this heist. I was like, I don't have any interest in like trying to force you guys to be thieves. That doesn't sound fun to me at all, because that's not the characters you have. But I like the idea of us all knowing that for some reason this makes sense. So we narrated these. I had you guys narrate these other timelines in which you were master thieves that Matt's character Rev was aware of, but you you weren't. So you guys get to still, as characters, be in the dark about your potentiality, but you as players know and are able to kind of like lay out your like best thief self. And I thought, for me, I thought that was really just like a fun moment hearing like Alan describe his Taylor character in kind of another universe being like a master thief, and us all at the table knowing he has those skills, but then going back to him, the Taylor, who is like just good with his hands for other reasons, was really fun. So I think for me, I'd say like feel comfortable kind of like tipping your hand to your players and then being like, help me fill in the gaps on this. Like, I'm not the perfect DM. I can't like lead you to.
You're great.
Thanks, you're a great DM.
Thanks.
And I can't wait to do the heist and then afterwards find out what the like movie adaptation cinematic version of the heist turns out to be.
Yeah. Initially, I was assuming Ocean's 11, but now I'm thinking, honestly, if I had to right now, I'd say the Thomas Crown Affair.
The
remake.
Right. All of the Apple face.
The Apple face guys.
I'm going to have to watch that. I haven't seen it.
It's pretty fun. Rene Russo.
I love Rene.
Pierce Brosnan.
Patrick Brosnan has not been landing a lot of good roles.
Patrick Brosnan has actually been in and out of jail over the last 10 years.
Is that true?
Yeah.
I know he had a lot of substance abuse problems.
Yeah, it's not funny.
No.
It's really sad.
This, but,
and Pierce doesn't... I get the feeling that he's not a very supportive...
I've never heard him talk about Patrick Brosnan once.
You know what? I dare you to Google it and see how many times Patrick and Pierce Brosnan have been in the same place at the same time.
Oh, man, that's sad.
Like twice, but that's it.
Yeah.
Birth and birthday.
Well, I think that pretty much sums up everything I wanted to get to today.
Same.
Jeff?
Yeah, same here.
All right.
Jeff,
you sure, Jeff?
Well, yeah, I'm sure.
Okay. Jeff, do you need any, what's an area of D&D that you'd like some words of wisdom on?
Oh, from you guys?
Yeah.
Specifically
like
from
tips?
Tyler.
Yeah. Words of wisdom. I guess I'm still like, magic is always such a hassle. Like, I'm going through my magic list. I'm like, when do I use this? When do I use that?
Yeah.
What's concentration? What's not?
Yeah.
Yeah. It's great that you asked about concentration.
Cool.
Because here's what I have to say about concentration.
Mm-hmm.
Concentration is not attached to wisdom, which you would maybe think, or intelligence. Concentration is attached to constitution.
Wow.
And the reason for that is if you're a magic user, you have to have the constitution to change the world.
Wow.